Today, on episode 59 of the #1 podcast in racing, Rail Talk, we recap a fabulous Saratoga meet, look forward to the Breeders' Cup, and welcome Kim Valerio on to talk about picking out horses. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds, and I got to give a major shout out and thank you to my co-host Jon Green and my producer Patty Wolf, who I hope this doesn't summon her, me bringing up her name, but they both gave us very generous wedding gifts. The wedding of the century is less than 2 weeks away. And not just you guys, as much as I love you and appreciate you, Skip Anderson sent in a gift. And I was like, it was such a cool moment because we were looking at the gifts and I was like, who the hell is Steven Anderson? And I never knew his government name. And Megan goes, from Fargo, North Dakota. I'm like, Skip! I was like, my heart filled with joy immediately. So thank you, Skip. Thank you, John. Thank you, Patty, for your generosity.
Joe, it's you guys, you're so worth it. And we're so excited to hear about your nuptials. And I wish I could be there, but I will be there definitely in spirit. And Patty will bring home an extra dessert for me just in case. So we have that going. She's at that age now where, Joe, I don't know if you realize, but Patty Wolf, our intrepid producer, has Tupperware in her pocketbook so she can bring home leftovers. Jonathan Green, general manager, DJ Stable. See how quickly we get off course on this show? No wonder why we are racing's #1 podcast. Looking forward to a great show with Kim Valerio, who I know very well. She's been working with us for a few years now and has come up with some stupendous, phenomenal horses for us. And you'll hear about what her process is.
So the Saratoga meet has come to a close. It was 39 days, if you remember, because they did cancel 1 day of racing. Handle was up, and it really just is such a cash cow for NYRA, and they put on a tremendous show. And there might be a little bit of an extended show going forward. It might expand the meet a little bit. John and I are going to put on our presidential hats and have a little debate about that later in the show. A couple major factors to discuss about the Saratoga meet. I think the safety numbers is a huge deal. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll talk about the individual performances. We had a great closing weekend. I want to talk about some of the jockey comings and goings, but the safety record was absolutely tremendous, especially compared to last year. Now, there was one major caveat. Unfortunately, we had a really ugly breakdown of the big torpedo last, where I believe it was Friday in the Saranac Stakes. And I just want to give our heartfelt condolences and thoughts to Tom Morley and Maggie Wolfendale, because we know you guys, we love you guys, and know how much you care about these horses. And he in particular was like one of the stars of the barn. So I know that had to be so difficult for you guys. So just know that we're thinking about you. And that was obviously horrible to watch. Thankfully, everybody else, the riders and the other horse, were okay, because it could have been even worse than that. But I know that's cold comfort to them. Overall, though, the Saratoga meet was phenomenally safe. There were 3 total fatalities. There was the big torpedo, and there were 2 training fatalities. That's compared to 14 racing fatalities last summer. We all remember where we were last summer and what a really kind of a nadir it was for the sport, and just really bring up these existential questions about whether this thing is really sustainable for the long run. 11,614 works were timed this summer at Saratoga, nearly 400 races with more than 3,000 starters. Incredible improvement year over year. And, some of these things, there's never like one root cause or one thing you point to say, this is why there were so many breakdowns. This is why there weren't any breakdowns. But I do think that the efforts from David O'Rourke and Dr. Scott Palmer and all the people that do the track maintenance, Glenn Kozak, everybody at NYRA and in the New York equine sphere, that has really all put their heads together and tried to figure out, how do we keep the horses as safe as possible after last summer. And I think they all deserve a major tip of the cap. Like I said, John, we can talk about the action on the track, but this is the most important thing after last summer. And they did a great job keeping everybody safe.
Well, I think there's a lot of kudos and wet willies to take away from this meet. And I can't coin that phrase. It's actually from Paul Schwartz, for the Giants beat writer, who talks about good things and bad things every week. And certainly the safety record, again, except for that last weekend, where it all counts. But when you have a major horse like Torpedo, come in and break down, unfortunately, on a national stage, it does leave a bad taste in your mouth, and it does always make you wanting more as far as improving safety. And I think Naira has done a good job. So much so, Joe, that we talk about it in the short run with Saratoga, but they're also in building a multi-million-dollar track surface. The all-weather track surface they're going to have at Belmont, starting next year, I believe. We're always trying to push forward and always trying to do better. I think that their safety record was very good. When you look at other points of interest as to whether or not were they successful this meet versus last year. All sources handle was over $800 million. It was just under $800 million last year. Average handle was up 3%, even though the daily paid attendance was down 2.5%. So people who were there, were betting a little bit more. On-track handle was about the same also. Races on the turf only had 45 races on the turf versus 65 last year. And I think that was by design. If they thought that the turf course was the least bit concerning, then they immediately shifted to the dirt. Despite that, the average field size was almost the same, 7.8 versus 7.6 last year. All the statistics, we're thankful or we appreciate from Naira. And then you had, the trainers race, which you could say wasn't really a race. Chad Brown winning 40 of the 165 starts that he had for 24%, which was amazing. Todd Pletcher, obviously, with the big Travers win, and his crossing of the in the canoe, which I love as a tradition. Mike Maker, Linda Rice are always there, and then I got to talk a little bit. My man Mark Casse, who only had 15 winners, but 15 winners from 52 starts, almost a 30% win percentage, and a great majority of those, Joe, were 2-year-olds. So anytime we looked at, 2-year-old maiden race coming in, Mark Casse was certainly important in those races. And then, from a jockey standpoint, we had Dylan on the show, and he finished in a flat foot tie for third place and just kept winning I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sure you can look this up, but his average win payout had to have been higher than the other top 5 jockeys that were out there, whether it's Irad, Flavien, who, again, you mentioned had a phenomenal meet. Tyler had a very good meet. And Manny Franco also coming in, and getting his share of 27 victories, nudging out Jose Ortiz, who did ride a little bit more in Kentucky this summer. But I think by any metric, Joe, that you look at it, this Saratoga meet was a success. Were there issues with, constant rain? Yeah, but they don't have control over that. Were there some substandard fields overall in some of the races? Yes. But as you can see, they had, almost 8 horses per race, which is really solid. And they had a lot of people coming in and watching and betting on these races. And Saratoga is a meet unto itself. It's just a very unique scenario and very unique situation.
Just to correct something that John said real quick, he was talking about off the turf races. When he mentioned the number of turf races, there were 412 races this year at Saratoga, 257 on dirt and 155 on the turf. Last year, there were 270 on dirt and 140 on turf. So we actually got luckier this year. It didn't seem like it during the beginning of middle August, but we actually got luckier with the weather this year. I want to talk about Flavien Prat because I remember this when we were on the old show and we had him on and he was riding out in California and he was just so obviously better than everybody else. Like not just in the standings, you watch him on the track. He was so much better than everybody else. He was just in the perfect spot every single time. Great finisher, all you could ever ask for. He would always show up and show out when he came to New York or Kentucky. Right. And then he would fly back to California and continue to dominate there. And I remember nudging him. I was like, bro, if you want to win an Eclipse Award, you got to come to New York. This is where you really make your bones. This is where you're going to get those kind of A-level mounts throughout the entire season, not just the parachute in for 1 or 2 races. And that's borne out. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that if and when he does get the Eclipse Award, he should have me on stage and thank me. But, it could be a classy gesture from my man Flavor Flav. No, but for real.
Or at least send you a gift. At least send you a wedding gift. Exactly. Because you are still registered.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for plugging the registry again. I didn't do it enough in the open.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Just in case anybody else is thinking of sending any gifts. No, but for real, like he's proven it. And I'm so gratified to see this. Like he stood tall against the best jockey colony in the world by far. And I know he didn't win the jockey's title. Irad won that. Irad's got more wins total this year. He's got 223. Flav's got 157. But Flavien Prat is ahead in the money race. And if you look at the average earnings per start, Flavien is far ahead of everybody else at over 31,000 plus per mount. He smashed the record of stakes wins at Saratoga, and he finished it out, like, just to not leave any doubt. He finished it out this past weekend with wins in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, the Hopeful, the Saranac, and the With Anticipation. So won 4 graded stakes over the weekend just to put the nail in the coffin for that record. Shout out to Flavien Prat, because he had a comfy thing. He had a comfy gig out in California. He could have ridden out there and just stacked up riding titles forever. He challenged himself. He came to the best riding colony in the world, and he's shown he's a top 5 rider in this country.
Much like, again, because it's all about us, Joe, much like we did when we migrated away from the previous podcast to start our own thing. We could have stayed there and lived very, very well off our writers' room royalties and everything like that. But no, we took the shot. We were the Flavien Prats of podcasting, is what I have to say. Yes, and now we have mugs to prove it. But
yeah, merch.
But I loved Flavien's ride on Chancellor McPatrick. Now, some people can say, hey, he was obviously the best horse in the race, and he's going to be a superstar. You might be able to say that. But the way that he navigated that horse in and out of traffic and making sure that his horse always had a clear path, and that was just the most recent example of what a solid race rider he is. There's a lot of riders out here, especially, that can break a horse on top and kind of say, come and catch me if you can. But Flavien's got a lot of skill as far as being able to ride front runners, being able to ride come from behind horses, getting a horse to relax, getting a young horse to relax, which is really difficult to do. And you're right. He is, we're not saying anything that's outrageous here, saying that he's one of the top, riders in the country right now, but it's so great to see him make his bones against the top colony, arguably the top colony of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting. And so, yeah, I think, to me, if the voting were done today, he would have to be Eclipse champion jockey. There's still time to go. We always got the Breeders' Cup. That's going to have a big say in things. But to me, in terms of riding on the big stage, it's been him and then everybody else. And that's no disrespect to Irad, who's obviously a phenomenal rider, had another great Saratoga meet, well-deserved riding title. But in the big spots, Flavien's been the guy this year. So that's, to me, going to be one of the fascinating things going into the Eclipse Award season, to see if he does get that trophy. And it's interesting you bring up Chancellor McPatrick, because he was, there are a lot of horses we could talk about from closing weekend, but he was the one that really jumped out to me, because, John, you rarely ever see this, a 2-year-old dirt horse that's a deep closer like that. Yeah. And his race, like his debut race, like he was hopelessly beaten until like the last 16th of a mile, and somehow flew past that Bill Mott horse, and then had to outclose a 3-5 favorite yesterday in the Hopeful. So that's just so interesting to me, because these races, 2-year-old races, dirt races, are usually won on the lead or close to the lead. It's a good training job by Chad Brown too, I got to say, because obviously he won the training title. It's a good training job by him to get that horse to be able to take dirt and still come with his run, because he was the star of the weekend to me.
He was the star of the weekend, and he arguably was also the star of the OBS under tax show, which is why he brought $725,000 as a 2-year-old. I mean, that's a lot of money for a first-year sire progeny in McKinsey, and he showed it. But to come off the pace, 6.5 furlongs, come off the pace 7/8 of a mile, that is really unusual. Some people are comparing him to Sierra Leone. I know you don't like that comparison, Joe, because you don't really like the horse, but some people would say that he's got a similar racing style to Big Brother SL. I say that tongue in cheek. He's not really related, but the same kind of racing of coming from off it, and it should behoove him as the races continue to go longer and longer.
Yeah. No doubt. And he's clearly like the most exciting 2-year-old from the meet, I think, so far. But yeah, I just to wrap this up, I got to give a major hat tip to David O'Rourke and everybody at NYRA. We banged on them a little bit earlier in the meet for some of the little snafus they've had this year. But when it comes to Saratoga, the TV show is great. The production is terrific. They do great renovations and additions to Saratoga every single year without kind of disrupting its original charm. And the safety record, I know everybody there is hard at work all the time, and knowing that that's the number one priority. And it really bore out this meet. And I'm very happy and very proud of the effort that NYRA and the New York racing circuit put on. However, there might be a little bit too much Saratoga in the near future if you're reading the tea leaves. We'll talk about that after this break. Rail Talk is sponsored by Facing Tipton. The August digital sale closed last Tuesday evening with 181 horses selling for $3.65 million. Those digital sales just keep growing in importance and prestige and sale prices. Something Wicked was offered as a racing broodmare prospect, topped the sale when she sold for $260,000. Entering the race off a maiden special weight win a month ago at Delaware Park. So I'm always saying these horses can win going into the sale and win coming out of the sale, and you can turn them around quickly, and it really just opens up the marketplace to so many opportunities. I know Jon Green and DJ Stable have taken advantage of that. I think more owners and buyers should. The Mid-Atlantic Fall Yearlings catalog is now online. 274 yearlings have been cataloged. It will be held Tuesday, October 1st at the Maryland State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland. We've also got the California Fall Yearlings coming up, and then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, to quote the great Keith Jackson, the November sale to take place November 4th, the Monday after Breeders' Cup weekend. Cannot wait for that, to see all the great mares and some of the weanlings as well sell at Newtown Paddocks. Shout out to Facing for always putting on a great show in the physical sales and the digital realm. All right, so with the presidential debate season right around the corner, we are going to have no moderator, because God knows Patty gets enough airtime on this show. John and I are going to go back and forth about a little bit of a developing story potentially that Dave Grenning, shout out to Dave Grenning, always does a great job, reported on the other day. So I'm quoting from the story here. There could be a little more of Saratoga in 2025. Among the topics that will be discussed in the coming months are adding more racing dates at Saratoga, though they would be considered part of the Belmont at the Big A spring summer meet. First, there could be one day added to the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival held in early June. Second, what will be considered the final week of the Belmont at the Big A Spring Summer Meet, which is July 3rd to 6th this year, or maybe that's next year's dates. Either way, it's that July 4th weekend, could be held at Saratoga prior to the official start of the Saratoga Summer Meet that is expected to begin July 10th. Now, this is a hot button topic. There people feel very strongly about this on both sides. I'm going to land on the anti side because, first of all, it's going to be Belmont at the Big A at Saratoga. Like, how you spin a wheel and figure out which color graphics to put up on the screen? Because that's going to be confusing as shit, first of all. Secondly, I'm okay with it if it's just 1 year and waiting for Belmont to reopen. But that Stars and Stripes weekend is a huge, huge weekend at Belmont. And I don't think that, especially with the new Belmont Park, the reimagined, renovated, reconstructed Belmont Park, do we really want to be taking, like the attention and the potential pizzazz of Belmont Park away and sending up to Saratoga? The other thing too is, let's be honest, the racing quality at Saratoga is not what it used to be. The more they expand this meet, the more they have these 30,000 New York bred maiden claimers and 10,000 claimers. And it's just, you see these races on Saturdays, on big Saturdays. And it's just, it takes away from what Saratoga is supposed to be, which is the cream of the crop, the best of the best, going at it every single day. Big fields, high quality racing. I don't think we need more Saratoga, John, but feel free to tell me why I'm wrong.
You're wrong, Joe.
Say why. Say
why.
why.
Oh, sorry. It was a two-part question. Okay. Yeah, no, I think normally, Joe, I'm in the camp of I don't like it when if more is good, if some is good, more is better. I don't believe in that. There's got to be some uniqueness to it. But Saratoga is so unique unto itself. And logistically, it's such a pain in the butt for trainers to get all of the horses up there and all of their grooms and all of the exercise riders and everything that they have to do for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, that if they extended it to an extra couple of weeks or an extra period of time, it would make life easier for the trainers and the people that actually put the show on stage. Horses obviously, love to have the cooler weather up in Saratoga in the morning. They absolutely train better up there when it's cooler. They like it better. And again, it's just quieter. It's just a better overall function for those athletes to perform. And when Kim Valerio comes on later on, I think she's going to talk about the importance of having the safety of the backstretch and cleanliness of the backstretch. And if you're going to bring horses up there for a couple of months, why not have it for a little bit longer? Because one thing you can say about the barn area at Saratoga is it's very unique, but it's also, it's also clean. I mean, they really take care of all of the structures that are back there. So it's only making things better for the athlete and for the people that are involved. Yes, it stinks when you're there on a Friday or Saturday and there's bottom claiming or there's bottom maiden claiming or New York breds that don't really deserve to be on the same stage as some of the better horses. But I think that if you made it a little bit longer meet, you may instill the belief that people would want to send their better horses there for a longer period of time, especially horses that are maybe coming off a layoff and they may need a race to run, and therefore you may get better races to go. I don't know. Saratoga is a very special place, and I'm a Jersey guy, so my immediate reaction is to immediately be against it. But I got to tell you, Joe, there's something magical about being up there and like going back in time. And I don't think having a couple extra weeks of racing up there is going to tarnish that feeling or negate that feeling.
Yeah, maybe. I'd like this is if it's just for, like I said, if it's just for me, if it's just a 1 year thing while we wait for Belmont to reopen, that's fine. But I just feel like there's kind of been somewhat of a push to have more Saratoga dates because this is the golden goose. Mm-hmm. This is the cash cow for New York. This is the way they fund the rest of the operations the rest of the year. So I get it. I understand the inclination to want more Saratoga, but you're putting so much money into Belmont that I think that should be at least like as big of a centerpiece of the racing calendar is that Belmont meet, just like Saratoga. You know, if you're spending $450 million to redo it. I will say that there were some other notes, some more tidbits in the article about maybe a Tapeta track coming to Saratoga at some point, because, you know, honestly, that's another one of the concerns is the turf course. They were like very, very like conscientious about their use of the turf course because they want it to last the entire season. You had another several weeks. Like, are we really going to be able to run on that grass course for several months in a row? Right. I don't know. Maybe a Tapeta track would help that. But yeah, I think not like you said at the beginning before you completely contradicted yourself. More of a good thing is not always better. Right. And I think that Saratoga is special. And I remember when it was 36 days. I'm sure there's old timers like you that remember when it was 4 weeks. And before that,
and it
like
cost
when
a nickel
Arnold
to get in. It cost a nickel to get in, and you could buy a hot dog for 50 cents.
And when Arnold Rothstein was fixing the Travers, like I remember you telling me about those days.
Good times.
But yeah, I mean, like maybe it's like the downstate New Yorker in me. Like I want Belmont to have that shine when it reopens, and I'm hoping that even if they do this next year, it's just a 1 year deal.
Yep, I think you're the only person that wants Belmont to shine.
Definitely not. Yo, what are you talking? Yo, flame John in the comments, please. Subscribe while you're at it, but flame John in the comments for that because I know I'm not the only Belmont lover here.
Compared to Saratoga, oh come on. Saratoga is so much fun to be at. They have the great restaurants. They have the great racing. They have the new bars there, even though I don't drink, but people like to socialize there. There's a lot going on. Go ahead.
I didn't say Saratoga, the town versus Elmont, New York. Obviously, that's no fucking contest.
That's part of it.
Obviously, there's no contest. I'm talking about the racetrack itself. And Belmont Park was a very, very special racetrack. We'll see what the new one looks like. And I don't know. Maybe this is just the withdrawal in me because I'm going to be at Aqueduct for the next 2 years straight. But once Belmont reopens, I'm going to be parking myself there.
And that's why this is the self-proclaimed #1 podcast in racing.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do, and mainly like Len Green does. Owns over 200 horses in the business with DJ Stable. They've won a ton of races. Coming up on 2,600, John, I think. You're probably getting close.
Getting close.
Yeah, so we'll throw a little party for you every 100 races or so. It's listen, Len's expertise goes so deep in this business, in racing, in accounting, and just in the business world in general. The Entrepreneur's Playbook teaches at the Babson School, and he'll hook you up with a complimentary, confidential half-hour consultation for listeners of Rail Talk. Hit him up at what's that number, Michael? 732-634-5100. Yeah, buddy. Or greenco.com. They'll help you out and get you prepared for tax season. But don't take it from me. Take it from another very, very esteemed Joe in the industry, Joe Orsino.
Oh, my taxes, 35 years plus. I originally started training for them and then moved everything to them like 6 months later. Absolute best. I mean, it's just when you know they're overlooking your taxes, it's in their hands. They when I first started with them, my old accountant had made a terrible error, and I talked to Len about it, and he said, back then, 35 years ago, let us handle this. You handle your horses and your training. You worry about that. That's what you do. Let us do this. And you know what? And that's the relationship I've had with them since. I let them handle everything, and you don't have to worry at night. I think you get a total package of knowing that, you know, if there's so many write-offs that we don't know about as horse trainers and horsemen, things that we do that you don't think about, that like I could, you know, write that off. Well, it's part of your business. And they know every part of your business that they're supposed to know, and they have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And, you know, again, it takes a lot less worry out of the day when you can just do what you do best and let them do what they do best.
Thank you, Joe. And Glenn will help you out just as much as he did Joe Orsino and countless other people in this business. Call him up at 732-634-5100 or go to greenco.com. So we are so stoked to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. She's an expert bloodstock agent. She's picked out a myriad of great horses for Jon Green and DJ Stable. She really is the brains behind the operation. Let's be serious. Kim Valerio, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, it's always great to see you and great to talk to you. And, you know I appreciate you making some time. And this is a really busy time for you with the yearling sale coming up. So I kind of wanted to jump in right there and ask that, like, what is your process like when you're prepping for these sales? Not just the yearling sales in general. Like, how long out are you doing prep work? Like, how often or how early are you going to see these horses? Like, just take us through, like, let's say like the month leading up to a big sale.
Well, leading into September now, we had, of course, Fasig-Tipton up in Saratoga. So that takes us 2 weeks out from this sale, basically, a little more because it's later this year. But my assistant Anna is here. We've been compiling all of our information. We do put a lot of our notes in from seeing them as weanlings. I've seen a lot of horses at every sale. I try to look at every horse to book 5 at the end of it. So it's a lot of legwork. So now we would just be putting in who the breeder is, if it was pinhooked, speed figures, our notes from when they were babies, any families that we want to know about, who has a lot of notes. I mean, if you look at my catalogs, you'll see that it's just probably way too much information, but we're down to collectors, Anna and I. So we have piles of spreadsheets over here from every sale. Just we know the names of the majority of the ones that we had pegged as the top, 20, 30 on the day. So it's a lot of work, but we love it. So it's just part of it. I have Kim, been looking.
There we go. We went 30 seconds without interrupting.
John, jump in.
I was going to say, I think you're being modest because not only do you put all the information in on the progeny and half brothers and sisters, but you guys are also doing a lot of legwork in advance. I don't think a lot of people realize, but you're already you're going to farms and basically doing all shows, right? For some of the major consignments, whether it's Airdrie or TaylorMade or et cetera.
Yeah, this year I haven't done as many as I wanted, but I did Airdrie. I love going there. I love Brett and the whole farm. They race horses. I do get to look at Coolmore because my horses are there. This year I didn't do as many as I would like to, just preparing, getting my own horses in line. So generally, yes, we would do that.
It gives you the opportunity to see horses 2 or 3 times, right, before you actually get a short list to your clients?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The problem is they change so much. And if we're looking at these horses that are in book 4 and 5, I don't want to throw them off the list. I'd rather just see them again, like you're saying. We see them a lot, I will say. And we put in those notes from the farms. It's looking at them often. I don't like to give you a list unless I've seen them at least 2 to 3 times. So that's important.
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to know a little bit more about your background. Did you have a horse background growing up? And also similarly, like when did you figure out that you could be good at this? Was there like one horse that you picked out or like one experience that you had where you're like, hey, I could do this for a living?
I have a show jumping background. I was a groom, a work rider. So, we rode them and we groomed them and we took care of them and we drove the truck, we drove the trailer. I worked for some great people in show jumping, the Steinwoodell family out of California, who happened to be Baffert's neighbor, is really how I started getting into racing the most. Poor Bob, I picked his brain all the time on how to select horses and watch him train with them and look at him jog up in the barn and talk about soundness and all of that. The same family I worked for back in Ohio, the Alexanders, they were related. And Mrs. Alexander was the leading owner and breeder in Ohio. So having all of her show horses, really, I was in the game at a smaller level. So I would say it was Betty, Mrs. A, that allowed me to buy my first racehorse, which was Magna Graduate. He won the Clark Handicap, the only 3-year-old that year to beat older horses. He ran 35 times, only 3 times out of Graded Stakes or Stakes Company. He ran on 16 different racetracks. He made $2.5 million, which today would probably be $5.5 million. So I would say that horse has really made me say, I'm going to do this. I don't want to be dirty. My knees hurt. My back hurts. I could drive in the truck.
That's why we became podcasters.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very quickly gig.
Yep. And Kim, I think you're being modest because not only do you have Magna Graduate, but a lot of people don't realize, and Joe, I'll include you in this group, but Kim has purchased 9 different Grade 1 winners for $100,000 or less. Let that sink in. It's not just 9 Grade 1 winners. It's 9 Grade 1 winners for under $100,000. And I think the Condo Commando was the one that really put you on the map. Won 5 out of 8 races, including the Spinaway as a 2-year-old. And what did you see in her that made you say that's a winner?
I will say I've had 3 Spinaway winners for under 100, which is awesome. Condo, she was to go back to where I come from. My father is he builds race cars for a living, so he's a fabricator and a tuner. She looked like a race car. She just was so fast looking, and she had a great pedigree. She was sleek and lean and mean, and black. I loved her. All my dad's race cars tend to be black. I just love that feel. Not to be picking race cars out, but they pretty much are.
Yep.
So she had such a good pedigree. I was surprised we got her for that, but she had vet issues. We waited to break her. We didn't break her till October. We saddle broke her. Matt Hogan did it for me. And then we didn't really re-break her until January. And then she won a Group 1 in September. So, leaving them be until they heal, there's a lot to say about that. So,
yeah, no doubt. I wanted to ask, like, that the thing that pops into my head always when I think of Condo Commando was Splashtastic. That was Tom Durkin's last call at Saratoga when she won the Spinaway. It was a messy day, but I'll always remember her for that. I assume you were there, Kim. Were you?
I was
what was
there.
That experience
it was
like?
So much fun. It was pouring out. It was a blast. She was a really nice horse. I loved her. Honestly, I sometimes think she probably was the best horse I picked. There was so much to her. She had so much class. I loved her. When she was by Tis Wonderful, I had another Tis Wonderful that still has, I believe so, I'd have to check, but she broke her maiden by 21 lengths at Saratoga. Her name was My Happy Face. She got beat a nostril by Dreaming of Julia and Frizette, and almost won the test, got beat a neck there. She sold on the last day of the sale for $35,000. So, Tis Wonderful was good to me. I'm sad Tis Now is basically extinct, but
yeah. Does it matter what book you buy a horse from, or what sale you buy it from, if it wins, or are there ones like you mentioned, or a Wonder Wheel or something like that maybe is a little bit more, you have a little bit more satisfaction because you saw. I think Lucas used to always say you could see the cat in the picture, and you kind of saw the cat before it developed.
Yeah, the sale company doesn't matter as much. Obviously, Saratoga, I don't really get to buy there, but you have to go, you have to look. I mean, if you don't see those horses, I'm constantly, the races are there, my catalogs are there. When they win, I go to look to see, was I on it? What was wrong with it? Blah, blah, blah. But I would have to say there's good horses in every catalog. If you just think about the Derby and the Oaks winner this year, they come from anywhere. So, I'm a pedigree snob, so I would rather keep pedigree and give up vet work, to balance it out and just leave the horses be until they feel like they're ready to go. So, to answer that question, the sale companies bring the products, the breeders bring the products. So they're there to buy.
I want to shift gears for a second because Jon let me in on a little change of heart that you've had. You were originally not for HISA and the new regulations that came into the sport. And it sounds like you've evolved on that. And now you're kind of, putting your efforts towards helping, unify and make the sport safer. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like what were you initially skeptical about? And then what kind of has led you towards the path where you're more supportive of it?
I've never been against uniform rules, and working for Mrs. Alexander, who was very involved in the horsemen's the HBPAs of Ohio and Kentucky, they were almost over the line with it, with the NUMP, the National Uniform Medication Policies. What I wasn't for was the federal government, who can't even do anything really at this point, but raise money for the presidential election. I just thought that there were too many people involved in this sport that were so intelligent that why wouldn't we just try together to push it over the line. And, in the end of the day, we have to remember that the real owner of the sport, besides the racetracks, are the Horsemen's Group through the Signal. And with that said, I thought that we should have gotten behind the HBPAs and the national HBPAs and really held the line through the thoroughbred owners and breeders and made them get it done, not, be forced to be attached to the COVID bill. And now you have these rules set in place. And now we are, to a point where you're guilty until you're proven innocent. So I just didn't want that to happen. And I also thought that instead of going through the Department of Justice and the commerce side of things, which is where we're at, we should have maybe went through the USDA, where we already had the testing machines in order. We already had this. People were already aware of the equine. There's a big difference in calibrations of machines with humans and horses. So we also had the oversight of the dairy and the beef and the poultry and the swine business, where the animal rights groups, we were more protected through that. I understand why they wanted to do it. They wanted the Department of Justice to be able to phone tap people. So, and our government does not commingle. So the commerce side wouldn't necessarily commingle with the USDA. So I got why they made that decision. But why I was against it was because of what I just said. I thought we should have went more towards the side of our horses having the oversight, not the Jockey Club having the Department of Justice step in. That's where I was against it. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And Kim, one of the things that you've educated me on, and that Joe and I have spoken about as recently as this show today, which is the cleanliness and importance of having the barn area, be as as clean and germ free as possible. And so many of the racetracks are pouring money into the front side, that they're not even looking at the barns that haven't been touched, other than for coats of paint and maybe some duct tape here or there for the past 4 or 5 decades. Walk the audience through, because again, you educated me on this. Walk the audience through on the importance of why clean stalls and new barns would add a benefit to the horse industry.
Well, for one, with the medications being taken away from the horses for just pure clean air, using, bronchodilators and other things that we can do to keep their air clean. They're dirty. There's no airflow, and the cross contamination is terrible. So, it's ultra important to just continually to relate our equine athletes to our human athletes. And like when you go to UK at a college level, their locker rooms are spotless, and our locker rooms are deplorable and disgusting. So I have put up a big fight. I have gone to Churchill. I've asked them over and over again, what are we going to do? Especially with my background in show jumping, the footing, those horses last till they're 20. I mean, we just saw horses jump the Olympics that are 18, 19 years old. You know why? Because their footing is pristine and their care is impeccable. And we don't have any control over that, because we have seemingly, instead of banding together in solidarity and saying we want more for the horses, not necessarily in the drug rules, but in our locker rooms, it's the most important part of it, really. And I can't stress enough, it pains me to go there anymore. I can barely go to the backside. I mean, it's so dirty. It's so, there's no empathy or compassion for the people back there. I'm, working for Mike Dubb, the amount of work he put into just getting them better housing. I mean, look at how much they've done for NYRA, for the housing. That's important here. We've got to step it up on our people and our compassion. I mean, Churchill, they just put bathroom doors on the bathroom. I mean, it's really? How can that be? Wow. How can that be? There's no running water. I sent you that video, John, remember? With the trickle of water, how are our grooms washing their hands? So with all that said, I had a long conversation with Charlie O'Connor, who sits on the Kentucky State Racing Commission. And I just said, please, I'm begging and pleading with anybody to just make the locker rooms better for the horses, please. That's all I'm asking.
Right.
So, it's important.
Are you sensing any movement on that?
I think so. Yes, I'm praying. Yeah. Because I'm not going to stop. And quite frankly, I've asked Bill Karstanjian if I could sit down and talk to him, and he said yes, that easy. And after the sale, I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to say, the moment that the likes of Churchill Downs in corporate say, we're going to put this huge investment into the horses, is the moment that our fans are going to go, oh my God, they're so lucky to have this. Right. The time, it's way past due. And I mean, my next step is to go to the shareholders and cause a big ruckus, because I'm not going to stop at it. I'm a horseman. Right. My stalls out in my backyard are cleaner than the stalls we get at Churchill Downs. That's sad. So I don't mean to be that way, but that's probably the most important part to me are animals.
Yep. Yeah. No, we appreciate you shaking shit up, because I agree. Like I go to Belmont, and like you said, they've done a lot for backstretch housing, but like they're building an entirely new racetrack and not touching the barn area. Right. And that needs a revamp just as much as the racetrack does, if not more. So it's a great point that you make. One last question from me, and it's back on the HISA drug policy subject, because they're talking about expanding the rules to cover sale horses. And you're the expert, so I defer to you. How big of a problem is that when you go to sales, and like horses might have corrective surgeries that you don't know about, or they might be on certain medications that you don't know about. How big of an issue is that when you're trying to scout horse flesh?
I understand why people would do it, but I don't like it. So, you know, I used to be the first one there and the last one to leave at every sale. I just can't do it anymore. I'm getting too old. But so I would see a lot, and it was shocking if the trainers were to do what the horses were getting at the sales. They would be banned for life. Let's just go with that. And when we had the big change and the sale companies said, you know, racing is filthy with drugs, literally I called Jeffrey and I called Boyd and I said, you have got to be kidding me with this statement. You have to clean your act up more. So they did. They made a change, and I'm super grateful for that. They really did. You know, I think it's important that the consigners remember that why they're using medications is because these horses are being shown so much. So it's the book 1, 2, and 3 horses. You know what I say? Put their back shoes on them sooner and school them. Don't walk them around a big field. Walk them on the dust, the gravel, and you know you're turning them more. Teach your handlers how to turn them wider. Don't turn them like they're bicycles because they're not. You know, there's so many things that we can do better instead of going to medications. So, you know, I understand why they use them. I don't want the horses to be sore either, but I want to buy my clients like Jon. I want them to be able to race the same product that I bought them. I don't want it to go home and then it gets deflated.
Right. And I think it's because of your actions and others that have spoken up and said, you know, as buyers, we're not going to accept this anymore. And that's why, you know, Keeneland and Fasig and OBS were, you know, have all, to their credit, have all stepped up and changed and updated their medication rules. And OBS is also, you know, coming out with a gallop up sale option for, you know, for the sales, for the 2-year-old sales as well, which I think is another big step forward for the industry and also giving, you know, people what they want. Kim, let me just shift gears for one more thing that I don't think the audience knows. And that is, you know, you and I talk a lot about the way that the way that horsemanship is handled in Europe and in other countries in comparison to here. And when you and I went over to Ireland to the sales, it really was an eye opener for me as to how they handle young horses, how they train horses. And I know that a lot of the things that they implement, it just isn't an option here. But what are some of the things that you've seen from a horsemanship standpoint that you would like for American trainers and owners to adopt here?
For one, I just the continually turning left is detrimental on their bodies. You know, I just don't understand how we just continually turn left with them. So when you know, I'm blessed that I've been to Ballydoyle a million times, and you know they go straight often. They are not one-sided. The other thing is the majority of their riders are also their grooms, so they have a better connection. We don't have our horses ship a lot here, so they go from one person to the next person to the next person. And you know, the one thing I can say is this. You know, another great horse that I picked, Scat Daddy. I know that a lot of his winning, he was a mama's boy. He was a crybaby. And just him always having his people, it made a huge difference. And I feel like if you can't see that on Saturday mornings watching these races in Europe, that it's the same people with their horses every single time, that has a lot to do with it. Riding my whole life, I know one thing. If somebody else rode one of the horses I was training for a week straight, you know, I lost connection with that horse. He made changes for better or most of the time worse. So I feel like what is really needed here, especially, you know, is another Fair Hill. I feel like if Kentucky could just implement, which is something I'm working on right now with Matt Hogan, is trying to get this big farm bought and turning it into, you know, tourism is huge here. We're going to try to structure something where maybe we can go to the Churchill Downs and say, take down 2 barns, give the horses more room, put paths in, they walk on concrete. That is the one thing that a good friend of mine said, the horses are doing so well in Saratoga right now because they're not walking on concrete all the time. That gets old after a while. It jars them up. So, I feel like a big training center with a big racetrack, a poly track, a grass gallop, come there and be part of it and touch and feel the horses. It's going to be important. Really what I've been working on a lot lately is trying to get a couple people to step up and look at this project and say, this is something special. So Keeneland, you got to move out all the time. They take better care of their surface than nearly anybody in racing. So we have to get out of the best surface all the time. Then we have to go to racetracks that don't water. It's detrimental on their joints. So, that's what I think we need to do. I think we need to together make it happen.
So you said that Kentucky's second leading product was thoroughbreds. Is their top leading product turning billionaires into millionaires?
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. You're not kidding.
How to make a small fortune. There's always old adage. How to make a small fortune in racing. First, take a large fortune.
Exactly. Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
One thing that Kim's done for us time and time again is getting value, and we really appreciate it. My dad just texted me a question because he knew you were going to be on. He said, "Why can't you find us more Grade 1 winners?" That's all. That's all he wanted to know.
I'm trying. We're going to have another one.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thank you so much for coming on and for the expertise. It was lovely getting to know you. And I know, with people like you fighting the good fight, this sport is in good hands. So appreciate the time and come back on. We'll just talk about like the scat daddies of the world, like all these horses you picked out. We'll just do an interview of that.
Yep. Yeah. And Sandman. Don't forget, Kim picked out Sandman from the Gallop.
Yeah. Well, I have to end by saying I'm so thankful to Jon for, buying horses that are just galloping. He knows how compassionate I am about, a horse being turning and burning that early in life. So to step up and pay that kind of money with Vinny and in West Point with a horse that's just galloping, that means the world to me. Thank you, Anna, for constantly bothering people down there and telling me where they're at.
It's just a shame that Joe's getting married the same day as the Iroquois. That's the only thing.
I'm streaming it, baby. I'll be streaming it from the wedding. Don't you worry. Yeah, good story all around.
For sure.
That's right.
Kim, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you and everything you do.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure. Look forward to spending time with you in a couple of weeks, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Next week.
Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. Big time of the year for TaylorMade as the September sale is right around the corner. We know they're going to be one of the top consigners there. They do it all, but especially yearlings. They're the top consigner pretty much every single year at the yearling sales. So good luck and shout out to everybody at TaylorMade getting ready for that big week of action. We know you guys are going to do great by your clients and your horses, which you always do. And Jon's got a little news on the TaylorMade racing front.
Yeah, Joe, they're coming out newly minted Medallion Racing 5. And we've been associated with Medallion Racing on Papilio, who is actually going to run at Kentucky Downs on Thursday, Joe. And then subsequently heading into a breeding stock sale in November. Medallion has also had Porta Fortuna, who finished second in last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And she's now won 3 Grade 1 races. And they also own a majority piece of Vodka with a Twist, who just ran second in a Grade 3. So they know how to pick good horses, proven race horses. They've had 12 Breeders' Cup starters since 2017, along with 5 Royal Ascot starters, including 2 winners of those 5 starters, which is a really high percentage at any racetrack, let alone Royal Ascot. So, they pick good horses. Phil Shelton and the team over there pick good, proven horses. They match you up very nicely. And I can say from being a partner with them on one previously mentioned Papilio, that they do things the right way over at Medallion. And it doesn't surprise me because they are, under the TaylorMade umbrella. And I can't say enough about TaylorMade sales, TaylorMade racing, and TaylorMade talents.
So we spent a lot of time talking about horses on the racetrack on this show. You know, we love the action, the glitz, the big attraction of Saturdays at Saratoga. But a lot of what is important and what's necessary in racing goes on behind the scenes. And I'm talking about retirement and aftercare. And it's on all of us. You know, there are so many great organizations who do tremendous work in rehoming and a lot of times retraining our thoroughbreds after they're done racing. But the onus is on the owners themselves too. And your responsibility does not end when that horse is claimed away from you or goes to another trainer or is sold or whatever. And Jon, you guys have a great example of a horse who was very good to you guys, who you swooped in and made sure has a safe place to land.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Joe. And you know, I agree with everything you say that it takes a village when horses need to be retired. And there's so many great 501c3 nonprofits that are out there that are willing to take on horses, but they're full to the gills right now. So we took it upon ourselves to actually privately purchase Proven Strategies back. He was running up in Woodbine, and he got claimed away from us back in 2023. And we just saw him running, and he wasn't the same. He wasn't just the happy horse that we had years ago. So we got together and purchased him. He's officially retired now. He will live out his remaining days, which is probably going to be 15 years, 20 years at Mark Cassie's farm in Ocala. And he's going to be stabled next to one of his old stablemates, Dolder Grand. And he will be repurposed to try to learn how to be a pony on the racetrack and an outriding horse down at Mark Cassie's place. But, Proven Strategies did a lot of things for us, Joe. One, it was the very first horse that Mark Cassie trained for us back in 2019. And all the son of a gun did was he ran second in the Skidmore. He ran fourth in the Summer Stakes. And then he at 99-1, we shipped him out to Santa Anita to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Race. And we have a clip here, Joe, and you'll appreciate this. So he's 99-1. He's in second place at the top of the stretch. He's about to pass the horse that's in front, and there's a group of horses right behind him, and the horse in front spooked and jumped and hit the inside rail, and all of a sudden we go from being second place to we're in front with a 16th of a mile to go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and my heart's pounding out of my chest. And another miracle had already run earlier that day and ran third, so we already hit the board in a Breeders' Cup race, and all of a sudden this 99-1 shot is there. Ends up losing by a length and a half. He finishes sixth. But the beauty of it is we were jumping up and down so excited. Mark Cassie was jumping up and down so excited. You would have thought we won the race. That's how excited we were for Proven Strategies. And that was just the kind of horse that he was. He had early speed. He tried all the time. Ran second in a grade 2. He won the Toronto Cup, and he ran 38 times in his career. And we just always have fond memories of Proven Strategies, especially because it's named for one of my dad's favorite catchphrases that's in his book all the time, is that you follow up with Proven Strategies. And, the horse was just a great story for us. We thought collectively with the Cassies that it just made sense to retire him and bring him down to Mark Cassie's place at the age of 7 years old. And like I said, he will live out the rest of his days there. I couldn't be happier for him. But there's more stories that need to be told like that, us included, that we need to seek out where our graduates are. And if we have the ability to bring them home, then it's our responsibility to get them to a good home.
100%. Yeah, no, and shout out to you guys. Kudos to y'all for keeping tabs on him. It's something that West Point does really well.
Yes,
and there was a similar horse recently named Devamani who ran in West Point's colors for a while, had gotten claimed away and was kind of in the lower levels, claiming ranks at Evangeline Downs. And we came in and bought the horse and retired him. And I want to give a shout out to several people on that. Jeff Lowe and Aaron Birkenhauer really do a great job in keeping tabs on our horses after they're claimed. And shout out to the West Point partners too, because they, we always want to do the right thing, but just in case, they keep us honest. Right. They always want to know what's happening to their horses after they're retired or after they're claimed. So a lot of it's what happens when you have a lot of people who are in it for the right reasons. Right. And I want to give a shout out to the West Point team because they do a great job with that as well. And also Erin Hurley of South Jersey Thoroughbred Rescue and Adoption has taken a ton of our retired horses, and she does an unbelievable job. She's a saint. And you need those kind of people in the business, but you also need, like you're saying, Jon, owners to take it upon themselves to keep tabs on their horses, even when they're no longer making money for them, and making sure that they have a soft place to land, because none of us could do any of this without the horses. And the horses don't stop needing to be fed and needing to be housed when they're done racing. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 59 of Rail Talk. Shout out to Kim Valerio for coming on and fascinating us. Appreciate the time, Kim. Shout out to Andrew Stewart and Arian Pedigrees for the Chancellor McPatrick pedigree that we popped up earlier on the video version. He's always sending us pedigrees of the big winners every week. So shout out to Andrew and the team at Arian. They do it better than anybody else in the pedigree business. Thank you to Jon Green. Thank you to our producer, Patty Wolf, and our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Shout out to you, the listeners, for getting us above 10,000. And if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button down below this yammering mug. Please do it, and we appreciate you all who have done it so far. See you next week back here on Rail Talk.
That's why I love you, Joe.